Welcome back, guys, into the F1 Fantasy Cockpit. This is your captain speaking. We're going to be talking about all things Chinese Grand Prix and the upcoming Japan Grand Prix. As we record, the FP1 is just getting underway. We're going to talk about it. There's lots to talk about between price changes, driver changes, a lot of stuff of we weren't expecting, as well as some heartbreak for a lot of people that may have burned those wild cards. So we'll get right into it. So looking back at China, my teams obviously did okay for my main team here. Went up $2 million from last week. Had a respectable amount of points. We were above, I think, 225, which is always a nice week to have for not using chips. And then slow climb up the global ranking. As well, friendly reminder for everyone, we are not using chips until after FP1 and 2. We want to see what happens. We're not doing that. Always a rule. Okay, so getting back into it, I'm going to show you my teams here to see how we made out. Jumping right into it here, we are looking at two teams that did fairly well this week. One of which isn't really a team that I do, but I just wanted to copy a driver build for quick comparison here. My main team, though, scored a respectable week. I kept Oscar Piastri on this team, put it 2 times on him, ended up doing very well for me. Kept Albon in there. Stroll, we knew was going to be going up in points. Same with Hulkenberg, McLaren, and Williams scoring an okay amount of points. Haas, obviously, in hindsight, would have been a better choice, although I honestly was surprised by Haas. The big talk of this past week was looking at how the double Ferrari teams went, and I'll show people what I mean by that. So this was, in particular, one of my Ferrari teams, and if it's going to show me the points, it will not. So we're going to go back here 1 second. So Team 3, 137 points. It was absolutely devastating. So the way it worked, minus 60 was absolutely huge, and they got no points for anything they did during the race as well. So this, for anyone that burned the wild card on the Ferrari team or had any kind of Ferrari stack, you were just left devastated this week. Just the Ferrari team alone taking minus 60 for both drivers being DQ'd. Even without anything done in the race, that would have put them at 43 points, which would have had them as the possibly the fourth best team on the week. It would have been fair to assume that they had enough points during the race, as well as their finishing positions, that they should have really finished on par in the mid 60s, if not low 60s, high 50s, with where Mercedes and Red Bull were. So it's absolutely devastating in Ferrari. Because of this, I really don't see a path in which, if you're still trying to build budget and recover from round one, you cannot be owning absolutely any Ferrari kind of teams going forward. Looking at how the driver lineup did, fairly respectable at 224. It was actually similar to that other one I built. I think the difference was I had Ocon in there instead of Nico Hulkenberg. Really the main difference, by taking Lando and the two Mercedes drivers, you're really having to punt. But Haas ended up having a really good week for me, Sauber not so much. But they were kind of the one team that, similar to how the Bortoletos on other teams, this is the kind of the team you were stuck with. So kind of respectable. It was kind of nice to not have to take big changes there. I'm curious to see how this team continues to do. So I'm likely not going to make too many changes with this team going forward. If anything, I might reduce Norris to a Piastri, knowing that these two are just going to be duking it out, and I'm just saving 6 million by taking Piastri, knowing he could win as many races. And it was nice to see Antonelli in a week where maybe it was a get right vote because he really should have had it in week one. Getting the driver of the day week vote in week two really gives me strength that there's some really likable drivers this year that Lando's not going to just get it every single weekend. And then my constructor focused team, where I definitely wanted the high-end McLaren one with the Williams. Fairly respectable, scored a little bit more points than the driver focus one at 254. This was a pretty safe lineup we knew was going to increase in budget as well as give us some points. So knowing that we gained $2 million this week and scored 254 points, that is the most ideal scenario. Just quickly gonna pull up here how the Ferrari guys made out. So just looking at Lewis Hamilton here. First off, so this is a scoring change that annoyed a lot of people, myself included. We thought the way the rules were written at the start of the season that the DQs weren't going to be driver specific, especially since both of these things were almost really out of the driver's control. Lewis is being his skid plate on the bottom of the car is really more of a ride height thing they're setting up before the race, and then Leclerc's being underweight. As much as the driver kind of affects it, he really can't. So we really didn't think these points were going to be affecting him, and that really hurts now, that minus 20, because at minus 1 points, when your value is 20 million, he really needed those 20 points to continue going up in price, and that's the same with Leclerc doing a similar thing. So these guys are both going to be trending down in the future, at least for one more week, if not 2 weeks. So it's looking very hard to own any kind of Ferrari stuff. Antonelli was another one that annoyed a lot of owners. I mean, especially as we were of the belief that he was a B tier driver, and given the week he had, he should have been going up zero point 0.6 million. We discovered that was not the case, and that in fact now it seems the 19 million seemed to be the limit for where the A tier drivers seem to start. So, like Russell, he only gained zero point 0.3 million. Still a positive, and at the end of the day, it's only zero point 0.3. But it could have, knowing that he was, even if he had the zero point 0.6 this week, put him at 19.6, he shouldn't have gone over 20 until after this race. So he should have had it still at least one more race to gain some value, a little bit more value with him. That's zero point 0.6. That can be all the difference between a few of these drivers, which is kind of unfortunate. But it seems to be figured out. That's the way we're going. So we're moving forward. With the swap of Liam Lawson and Yuki now, there really is kind of a gap kind of forming between the drivers as far as value. Just looking at the drivers now, we've kind of created a bit more of a gap where Alex Albon's sitting there right around 13, kind of in the middle with 16, and then up to 19. So we're starting to see a bit of a gap. I expect this to even drop a little further. So for anyone want that already added Yuki as soon as they heard the change before these guys got into it. It appears it was all for naught, because if you had these drivers, similar to driver changes in the past when Liam Lawson came in for Ricardo, for example, you have to manually put in the new driver because these are brand new driver cards and they take over the values for the drivers they were replacing, which is very annoying, knowing that it's a seat swap and not a new driver coming in. But this is the way they have done it in the past, so it is a little bit consistent for that. It just sucks that it's the first time we've had a swap where, for anyone that had Yuki and thought he was climbing, it's really hard to get that value in. And then the other problem we have with these two, as you can see, no points on the season. So they're not, it doesn't appear that they're going to be carrying forward any of their points, which part of that is fair, as their points per million values are going to differ now, especially having a great difference in machinery, difference in potential for that machinery, and their points per million is going to be very skewed now. So knowing these guys are starting from 0-0 and then whatever they put up this weekend, it's really volatile. It's going to be really hard for them to gain any kind of value this week. So I think you can only really add Yuki or Lawson if you're wanting to get points. You don't really care about budget, because I think they are going to be budget losers for you now. Don't pay much mind to the percent picked just yet. I think, like myself included, haven't really opened up the teams. And I didn't have any of them anyway, but if they were on your team, I think they've been booted off already. So that's why the ownership, these are probably people that have re-added them to their teams. The one thing that looked really nice this past weekend was our Haas drivers. So I could probably sort by points to find them sooner. So Esteban Ocon actually had a really nice weekend with 24 points. He was just get a few nice overtakes, had 4 overtakes during the race. Overall, just looked very, very comfortable. Finishing fifth because of a fortunate Ferrari DQ for him, although that was only one position So that's a position gain for him as well as a position. But at the end of the day, that's only a few points for him, especially at sub 10 million. A very respectable position for him. And Ollie Behrman, ciao, as he would say with all of his passes during the race, also scoring 20 points, finishing in the points for a double Haas finish. And important to note, finishing at eighth, he was going to finish in the points regardless of both Ferraris being DQ'd. I'm actually trying to think of where Gasly finished, whether he was ahead of Behrman. He very well might have been. So he might have been a little fortuitous that way. But either way, a lot of overtakes, which is really nice to see. He seems to be a lot more comfortable than maybe some of the other rookies in the middle of that pack. So whether he's finishing in the points every week, he seems to be pretty comfortable passing at least a lot of the drivers that are in between the points and the back of the grid, which is nice to see, especially for a value driver. That is exactly what we want. So now we're going to be looking forward to Japan this week. We'll talk more about some of the effects of China coming forward, but we're going to talk about Japan here first. So it's a pretty unique circuit. There is a lot of overtaking potential, despite there only being one DRS zone here on the first straight from the starting line up to the first turn. A lot of that is because a lot of these turns are medium high speed corners with just the one low speed corner there at turn, what is that, 13, I think. It's basically that hairpin. Everywhere else, it's a lot about maintaining and managing speed and trying to carry it through. There's a lot of transitioning corners, which I think makes this a pretty technical track. Max Verstappen has won from pole each of the last 3 years at this race. Much because of how much of a savage this guy is when it comes to just raw talent and just how technical he is. And so I think that bodes very well for him. There's just the one DRS zone in the past for a lot of us that have Alex Albon. I don't expect this to be a factor, but he hasn't finished any of the last 3 years here. Part of that due to the car, some of it due to crashes, horrible luck. So the guy's got to be due to at least finish this race. In the past, it hasn't been there is a lot of grass to step out onto to spin out cars. It's not overly tight in a lot of areas. There are gravel traps, but overall, I think the average of like 2 or 3 DNFs per race seems to be an average, if even a high average for this circuit. I think there's been a fewer. I think it's more common due to how much some of these transitioning turns, like from 1 to 2. 14 and 50, like where all, what even is that? Oh, am I going backwards? I'm definitely going backwards. I'm not totally sure. These numbers are all skewed. I can't see what I'm looking at, to be honest. But, well, that's 10 and 11. So 10 and 11, there's a lot of transitioning corners that are very important in how you carry your speed. So really, if you're defending at all, getting off the racing line at all, it can really affect you. So there does, basically, once the grid's kind of made, it does spread out quite a bit. I know Max Verstappen's won by large gaps and has even led from the start of the pack to the last almost by like lapping multiple drivers. Seems to be a bigger trend more than drivers not finishing here. This is a really aggressive track for tires. In the past, it has been a two-stop race, even though it's sub 60 laps. There's a lot due mainly to the high speed left-handers, especially, seem to be are the tires that are affected the most. As well as a lot of this section of track was resurfaced. So from the chicane there, right before the final turn there, I believe that's 17 and 18, all the way around through sector 1 up into that is turn 8, I believe was resurfaced. And I know there's a lot of winding in there. There's a lot of high speed, medium speed turns. So tires could be getting chewed up in that first sector, but there could be a lot of grip being found in that first sector. So we're really excited to see what happens with that. And last year, a two-stop race was pretty popular, although Leclerc did gain 4 spots by doing a one-stopper. But with the resurfacing of a good third of the track, it's hard to know if that's going to be a solution for them this year. But they are using the 3 hardest compounds. It's the first time we're seeing the hardest compound, the C1 tires they're called, this year. So we're excited to see how that pans out. So we already talked about the driver switch of Yuki and Lawson. Just some expectations. I know we expect a lot probably from Lawson more than anything else from this race. The rumor of the RB being easier to drive, we hope is true for him. He has raced on this track in Suzuka a lot, doing Super Formula rather than doing Formula 2 like a lot of the other rookies coming in this year have done. So he's very familiar with this track. Even though if it hasn't transitioned into success the last few years due to lesser machinery, hopefully the RB being easier to drive, he can actually put maybe a little bit of confidence, a little bit of experience to work to do kind of well. Yuki seems to have some confidence he feels in the Red Bull after doing simulator sessions. Practice is going to be really telling for how he does, because at no point has Liam looked comfortable at all in that Red Bull. So if Yuki looks even the slightest bit comfortable, he could be a big value at 16 million going forward. But I don't expect his value to go up, so I'm willing to wait a week or two before I'm putting Yuki in my lineup, which is always nice to see, especially when we've only had one dry race to really see how all these drivers have been affected. Now, there are a lot of drivers that we just straight up cannot own. And I'll go through some of those before all the practice is done here. So, just with the review of China first, you can see there seems to be like Ferrari taking the minus 23 is an absolutely massive hit. Alonso took another big hit, so Alonso just is probably the worst thing you can have on any of your teams. There's no reason to have him on your teams. If you have to make even just one switch this week and you can't figure out who it is, I don't care how much budget you have left, you drop him for the next driver you can afford. Because this is just going to be a downward spiral. Like, he shouldn't be getting right probably until the first USA race, which I think might be Miami. Yes, cool. As well as Lawson taking negative points. He's likely still going to be clawing out of that this week. Leclerc and Hamilton now with the negative points, they'll be clawing out of that this week. Hamilton actually kind of fortunate to only have a -1, likely because he took that race. But when you cost over 20 million, you need to be doing a lot more. You need to be in the green. You cannot be doing these small points. So definitely head over to F1 Fantasy Tools. It's a great tool for us to be using. It's just absolutely fantastic. So what we want to be looking here is on this section over here at the budget builder. So what you want to be looking at first here is this is showing expected driver changes. So what are the points needed to either be going down 0.1, down 0.3, up 0.1, up 0.3. So as you can see, even Verstappen, it almost doesn't even seem real to me that he needs that many points to increase in value. But I guess to go up the maximum of 0.3, given the threshold, but even a 0.1, 19 points, totally achievable for him, I think. But looking at Hamilton and Leclerc, 60, 61, and 69 points. For the record, so to go up at all, Norris put up 59 doing fastest lap and fastest driver, finishing first place in Australia. So it is physically impossible, I think, almost for these Ferraris to even try and get into positive numbers this week. Even just trying to, like, putting up respectable numbers of 40 points is still likely going to cause them to drop in price. So I don't see a way you can own them this week. Much the same can be said in the B tier with, I guess these points, they're kind of hard to achieve for these guys. I don't expect Hajar, Bordello, Duhan to maybe score this many points, although Behrman did. Behrman did score 20 last week, so who's to say one of these guys can't? The bigger issue being Sainz and Alonso, just absolutely unownable. I'd even throw Gasly in there, knowing he got a DQ last week too. That's going to be hanging around for quite a while as well. If anyone can get 27, maybe he can. That's maybe better luck than these guys, but I just don't see a reason to try to own them. Maybe you go, if you have to keep any, it's these two, Hedger and Bordello, just because they're the cheapest ones. So you're likely getting stuck with them. And they do have the least amount of points to try to get out. And how much farther can Bordello really fall? I really don't think he can even go down 0.6 more. I know they've usually capped it at 4.5, so 0.3 might be it for him. Same with Hajar. If he goes down 0.6, he's at 4.5. So if they did cap the floor for these drivers, it's really not as bad of a hit for these two guys here. Tsunoda's a weird one. only because, yeah, so they have the negative points now. Um, I'm not sure if this math is mathing for me. Yeah, so to get at least 16 points, but that'd be divided by three races. So they're saying it's right. So it's saying so. No, we need 16 points in order to go even the slightest bit positive. I'd really want to wait probably one race before I add Sonoda, just because I want to see how he does in practice. Now, come in tomorrow with the next video, we're going to see how he did in practice. If he looks promising, I very well may add him just because it's sub 17 million to get what could be eventually an A tier driver could be a really nice thing to have. Albon really doesn't need to go much. A lot of these guys could even be losing, like Ocon and Behrman could stand to even lose a few positions, even if they qualify well. They can get overtaken a few times, make a few mistakes. As long as they finish, they should still be going up in value. So the Haas drivers, definitely a really nice stack, as well as the driver. Like, my goodness, like short of one of their cars, knock on wood, getting DQ'd, there's really not a way that they're going to be going down in price. Even negative 31 points, because they only cost 8.2 million, is going to put them up in price. So Haas should definitely be owned for all the budget building teams. Even the V carbs at only -3. Kick Sauber's not an outrageous thing to go up with. Just basically, if they go positive, same with Williams, they get any positive points, they're going up. So things to keep in mind. Don't go changing your teams maybe too much. If you have Kick Sauber and or Williams and you want to move to Kick Sauber, I think it's easier. It's Williams should score more points for you, as well as it's not going to take much for them to go up the same amount of value. Something to think about for there. And the A tier, like I said, 85 points for Ferrari. So they likely have to go finish 1-2 this weekend in order to get that many points and just to try to go positive. I don't see it happening. If you're forced holding them, they're going to score points for you. You might lose budget on them, but maybe if they're your only loser for budget, that'd be, and you burned your wild card already, this is maybe the one you keep rather than the drivers. I would probably, if you had to pick, if you have all three, I'm probably switching the drivers out and keeping Ferrari in, knowing that 36 points is very much more achievable for a team than 40 points for any one driver, to kind of almost right the ship, because that's only a -1. Like, you're not hurting too bad with that -0.1 at 36 points with Ferrari. And they're going to score you points this weekend. They looked really competitive despite the double DQ last week, which was nice to see. Like, they should have scored more points than Red Bull, maybe even Mercedes last week, which is so unfortunate for them. For the people that have double stacked McLaren and Mercedes, bravo. You got to be feeling good. For anyone that has Norris and Antonelli in there or is stacking both Mercedes drivers, you're feeling good. But definitely give this budget builder a look, because they're just definitely a crop of drivers between Ferrari. I guess try not to own them unless it's going to put you over the transfer amounts, because they likely, yeah, they're likely going to go down maybe only point 0.1 this weekend, which isn't the worst. But Alpine, I don't see a reason to own them at 8.3 when you can have guaranteed budget increases and maybe similar points with the V carb and the Haas's, maybe even the Williams. So no one should be owning Alpine right now. And then obviously Sainz, Alonso, and Gasly cannot be owned, with Hadjar, Bordello, and Duan being the guys that we're kind of getting stuck with. And there's not much we can do about that. It is what it is. Just hopefully you can afford the 6.7 of Behrman and the 7.6 of Hulk, which is kind of close to these guys. Yeah, so that is, I'd say, what we're hoping can happen. So initial ideas with that in mind for my team. I'm not totally sure if there's much I want to change for my team right away. Bortoleto would be the only one. Like, maybe I'm switching Williams out this weekend for Haas. So if I do that, just having a quick look here, throwing the Haas in there, I'm getting a few million. I can throw Bortoleto out, and I have 10 million. What are the odds I can afford Ocon? Actually, really good that I can afford Ocon. But let me see this value. Yeah, I could afford Liam Lawson even if I wanted, or Ocon. So they're both there for me. I'll throw Ocon in there because I know what's happening. Lawson's got to be a game time decision with how he looks in practice. But now my entire team is supposed to go up in value. As much as I'm wasting 2.2, I don't really see a point in changing anyone else really because I can't move Albon up anymore. Maybe I can move Piastri up, but why would I when he's a guy that's the cheapest of all these A tiers and he's the one competing for wins in some of these races now? So I don't see much changes if you're someone that has stacked Piastri with McLaren and had like a budget constructor to be able to afford someone in the middle like Albon. That's something you can definitely do. Just having a look at maybe the teams that stacked Ferrari and Mercedes. So for this team, I kind of got lucky that I have both Haas's in here, so I just really need to move Ferrari out of here. So I already have Mercedes. Do I throw the Red Bull in there? Maybe I throw the Red Bull in there, and that's a look that can happen. Maybe I throw the Haas in there, and then I'm throwing Bortoletto out, and now I can upgrade to Antonelli, George Russell. Maybe that's a move that I like. Antonelli's cheaper. Maybe I do that. Still 5 million. Goodness me. This is a team I'm going to take minus 10 points on to flip around. I don't think I want to because I think I'd want to be able to flip back to a different driver later on, but let's experiment. Let's do a little experimenting here. Maybe I can keep Albon. Can I really keep Albon? I can't keep Albon. Oh my God. So the only changes, if I have this right, are I flip out Hulkenberg. I have to make sure. Antonelli and Haas. Let me just back up here. So fixing this team. No, this is a team I didn't have Albon on. Okay, so by flipping out both Kick Saubers and the Ferrari, I'm taking minus 10, but I can have Kimi Antonelli, I can have Alex Albon, and I can have the Haas. I don't hate this. Don't hate this. Obviously, we're waiting till after practice, but this is something that I think I would be very willing to keep. I'm actually going to take a picture of this just because I kind of want to remember this in case it's something I want to use. Yeah, so with that in mind, where are some other teams I had here? Hoping for what people could have as possible teams. So instead of Piastri, let me see here. I'll leave you there. Kimi Antonelli, I need quite a few of these drivers. So I need Hulkenberg back. So let's go. Lance Stroll I need in here, and Hulkenberg I need in here. Good. I think this is what a lot of people are going to be looking like this weekend, and which is totally okay to have this. Like this is pretty close, I think, what I had before. According to this, even apparently I can just switch out Bortoletto and Ferrari, just take Haas and Stroll. That can work. I have all kinds of budget left. Actually, with this much budget, depending on how you've done, like I might have a lot more budget than some people. You can even, if you really want to, flip Piastri, get like a Norris. This is something you can do. Even flipping Norris out, we can go Piastri, and maybe instead of, it's kind of hard just because all these guys are going up in value. Like you kind of want to be a little bit greedy, but 8 million is just way too much. Like there's got to be a better way to spend it. This might be a team where instead of like a Stroll, I am risking it on a Yuki Tsunoda if he's looking good in practice. This is an eligible team to do that. If not, maybe take a Norris on this one. But all of you may not have as much budget as me. Some people are still sub 100 that I've seen, so that's an idea. Just looking at some other teams I was building earlier, I think the only difference between these ones was whether I had the Haas in there or the V-Carb or the Williams. And you can kind of pick your poison. They should score similar points, go up in similar values, I think. So really, it's honestly who you want to root for. I don't love rooting for Haas. I've not always been an Ocon fan. Nothing against them. It's just I haven't really believed in them, and now it's kind of odd that they're doing well. I still don't believe it, but with as many medium speed corners between China and Japan, maybe they continue that trend. A lot of it to depend too a bit on weather. In the past with Japan, it has been not made a wet race. It has a reputation for being a wet race because I think they've had a couple like monsoon races that have just been like absolutely devastating. But the most recent one was 2022 with Max Verstappen. There was only two DNFs. That was Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon both finishing out. Sainz actually crashed out on the first lap, and Albon I think had a mechanical issue that year. A lot of guys were lapped down. Max Verstappen had a huge lead, but it was very very wet. And I think the reason why the field was so spread out is, as I said before, being such a technical track. I do think any little bit of maybe miscalculated aggression, especially with as many rookies as we have, if it does get wet, could get a little dicey. The one rookie I'm probably the most worried for this week is Doohan. Just watching him, even like wheel bang and race with Hajar was great to watch. But I do really think a track with as many connected corners, where it's so important that you hit the line on the very first corner, to be able to hit and get the speed out of the second one, that's so close to it, it's really going to affect him. So I don't think he can be racing quite that hard. He may know that, but he also may not. Especially if it's a wet race, it's going to be, if he's not taking the right line, it's going to be easy to dip a wheel in the grass, end up in the gravel. Even if you're just going to lose position, is what's likely to happen, whether it's maybe not finishing the race. I don't expect many DNFs, if any, but it'll be definitely a technical race, and I think rain's only going to make it more challenging for this field of rookies. Obviously, we're not worried in Antonelli. He's had a wet race before, and he looked absolutely amazing. So that's up to him. Yeah, so all eyes are going to be on FP1 and 2 currently going on. I'm going to sign off and go give myself a watch so I can start taking notes for you guys tomorrow. So hopefully your team survived. Don't quit yet. I believe in you. We'll see you tomorrow.